Well, the further we get into 2020, the less likely it probably is that we'll be getting the one Zelda game released a year that Nintendo had previously stated was their goal, and had been true since 2014. This was their plan, and accordingly, AJ made a video earlier in the year of what Zelda game we may see come out in 2020, so feel free to go watch that one. But my prediction for a long time had been for the sequel to Breath of the Wild that was announced at E3 2019. I believe 2020 really was the initial plan, and man alive, do I still want that to be the case. But I can't imagine it still hitting that release date anymore. So maybe it's one of those other ones that AJ guessed, a port, a remaster, another indie collaboration, I don't know. But whatever it is, there's a chance you've already got that Zelda itch and want something to fill the gap until that time comes, maybe next year. So here are the 9 Zelda-like games that are on Nintendo Switch right now, as well as a few other ones to look forward to. Let's talk about it. As many of you know, Zelda has gone through a number of iterations and come out the other side all the better for it, but I would be remiss to only give ideas on one of these styles and not the others, so we'll be looking at games in the top-down, 3D linear, and 3D open-world Zelda style. If you don't know what any of these means, I'll provide context as we go by, comparing them to other Zelda games you can play on your Switch right now. First up, top-down Zelda. This is the original and classic Zelda formula. Last year we saw a remake of Zelda Link's Awakening on Switch, and this would fall into that style. There are no camera controls, and everything is typically in a fairly obvious grid-lined world. We expect dungeons that hold secrets, provide you new abilities, and those abilities are used to solve puzzles and defeat new enemies. The first is probably the most blatant homage, Blossom Tales. This game is super similar to A Link to the Past, and in a great way. The progression is linear as your items open up new areas, and there are fun side missions. The storytelling is cute and kind of hokey, as it pokes fun at the fact that it's so similar to Zelda, but it's endearing and not annoying. Doing lots of the little side stuff and the full story probably lasted me close to 10 hours back when I played it, and it's $15, though often on sale, with a demo you can also try out on the eShop. Next, and very similar, is Itll Do 2. I bought this one on sale for $6 at some point, down from its $15 price tag, and I'm actually playing through it right now. The tone is very similar to Blossom Tales, but different when it comes to art style, weapons, and progression. There are 8 story dungeons and a bunch of optional ones, but they're completable out of order, and the dungeon items are fairly different from the traditional boomerang, grapple, and so on from the Zelda lineage. Also, humor really does play a big part in this game. Anytime you go into someone's house and destroy all their stuff, for example, they'll be sure to make a cute quip about it. This game will probably be in about the 10-hour range, all said and done, if you want to do, some side dungeons, and it does a good job of scratching that top-down Zelda itch as well. Straying a bit further from the cut, though, is Hyperlight Drifter, and this is one I haven't actually gotten yet to play myself, but has become a classic indie title that I'd like to make time for. And this is one you may want to play if you want to be reminded of Zelda and its inspiration without feeling like it's a new skin over our Linky boy. The emphasis in this game is not so much on puzzles, but rather combat and exploration of this beautiful modern pixel art world. And the storytelling in this ruined world is intentionally minimal, and the music is gorgeous. This game is $20 on the eShop and is one that I'll be picking up for my backlog next time it goes on sale. So that's 3 top-down Zelda recommendations, which brings us into the next category, traditional 3D Zeldas. And this is actually an area that we can't really make any Switch comparisons yet. This would be similar to Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, or Twilight Princess. The guiding principle of these games are basically the same as what we've been talking about, but the camera is not fixed, the world is not on a grid, and the gameplay is likely generally to feel more grandiose. The most on the nose of the following 3 is definitely Okami HD, a game that has released on a billion systems, but has probably found its most comfortable home on Switch mechanically. Many similarities are often made between this game and Zelda Twilight Princess, as both follow the Zelda formula and you play as a wolf. And as someone who likes both, I won't make a preference call, but Okami does a great job of giving you interesting puzzles, power-ups, and story and combat. The world of the game is also a far cry from what we're used to, and at $20, this is tons of bang for your buck, especially because it's often on sale for $15. But also available at $20 is Hobb, which has a demo available on the eShop for free. This game actually toes the line between the 3D and top-down Zelda styles, but in terms of scope, freedom of movement, and world design, it does feel more akin to the 3D style. The game has a strong focus on its puzzle elements with a remarkable and enchantingly derelict world. The combat isn't the primary focus of this game, but is still pretty good. This is another one in a more mystical world with interesting gameplay development. But on the opposite end, where combat is definitely the focus, we have Darksiders. This franchise has gone through an evolution, but the first game in the series was very akin to a darker, more combat-heavy 3D Zelda. This is yet another that I haven't had a chance to play, and comes in just a bit more pricey than the others so far at $30 instead. Although this is a combat-focused game, maybe more like God of War, the game features dungeons where you'll find puzzles that utilize items similar to the boomerang or hookshot that require some thinking, more than just quick reflexes and sword mastery. And the Switch port was one of the first third-party games to feature a graphics or performance mode, which ensures it runs the way that you'd like. And now we'll get into what's my favorite category, and this is new territory for Zelda, but is what we're generally waiting for in Breath of the Wild sequel. This is the open-air Zelda-like category, as Nintendo calls it. The core principles are pretty similar: puzzles, combat, storytelling, and so on, but the progression is different, and a new primary mechanic is exploration, in a way that wasn't the case before. The first of these is going to be the least traditional Zelda equivalent, but my favorite, so I want to mention it before the average person dips out. Funnily enough, this game came out around Breath of the Wild, but was only recently brought over to the Switch, and it is Divinity Original Sin 2. To be honest, this is probably more different from Zelda than it is similar, but the feeling that it evokes of discovery around every corner and just wanting to play just a little bit more are exactly what Breath of the Wild garnered for me. The world is vast and deep, with all sorts of side quests, contextual puzzles, and replay value, and in a lot of ways can be compared more to Dungeons & Dragons than Zelda, with deeply branching dialogue trees, complex turn-based combat, and more. But seriously guys, this is an incredible game that if you enjoy turn-based combat as well as Breath of the Wild, this will be right up your alley. Along more direct lines though is a classic, Skyrim. The combat is probably more diverse in some ways than Zelda, but certainly less fluid and organic. The world though is once again very deep and allows freedom to progress in any number of directions, skipping over entire sections of the map at times. In all honesty, this game to me feels more dated than most of the others on this list, but it is a fair suggestion when comparisons to Breath of the Wild are made. And there's one more game for this list that's out right now, but after that, I'd like to quickly mention a couple of Zelda-likes to avoid, as well as a few to be looking forward to later in 2020. The last of this 9 is a modern classic, The Witcher 3. One more that I haven't played yet, but I very much hope to. The Witcher 3 is very similar to an M-rated Breath of the Wild. Similar things can be said here to the other two. The story and how different quests progress is very much in your control, which makes for a super realized world. There aren't puzzles in this game or in Skyrim the same way Zelda focuses on, although Divinity does kind of have them, but all three of these games have a different kind of puzzle, which is dialogue and relationship navigation. And there you have it. Those are the 9 Zelda-likes that are out now that I would recommend. But let me quickly note 2 that are out now to avoid and 2 to look forward to. So there are a couple that looked promising as being similar to Breath of the Wild, but ultimately failed to deliver in that way. These would be Pine and Decay of Logos. Without going too much in depth, both of these give off a similar look at first glance as Breath of the Wild, and I was pretty excited about both of them when first revealed. But after suffering from clunkiness, poor performance, and underwhelming gameplay design decisions, they're probably ones to avoid instead. However, looking forward into the future, there are 2 more that do look promising, although we know very little about either. The first is Windbound. This game seems to have been first announced this April and is slated to release August 28th of this year. From the look of the first trailer, it'll mix a bit of Breath of the Wild's open structure and Wind Waker's sailing elements. From what I can tell, you're building or rebuilding your ship, and most likely the traversal of the world, or the ocean mechanic, will be limited to the durability or power of your boat. As you build it more, you can probably reach further islands with more arduous tasks, bringing you closer to finishing your mission. The art style also looks great and very tasteful so far, and I can't wait to see more. And last but not least is Gods and Monsters, a Ubisoft developed game that looks similar in aesthetic and art style to Breath of the Wild, and in terms of gameplay is likely to be a mixture of it and Assassin's Creed in some ways, with a focus on Greek mythology as you battle monsters such as the Typhon. It's yet to be seen what exactly the gameplay will be, but I know that I, for one, am very excited. And that about does it for this list of Zelda-like games you can play on your Switch. I know I skipped over some that may have been on your list, so be sure to let me know what those are in the comments below, and while you're down there, be sure to like the video if you do, and subscribe to fanatixfour for more content like this every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and check out our podcast on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time every weekend too, on youtube.com/directly to you or all the podcast platforms that you know of. All right, thanks for watching so much. See you next time.